Well, here we are with the Lift Heavy Run Long podcast, episode 15. My name is Wilson Horrell. I'm here with Vaughn Rawls, and our guest today is Lisbeth Darsh of wordswithlisbeth.com. We're fortunate to have her spend some time with us. She is the author of the book Live Like That and Strong Starts in the Mind. She's employed by CrossFit headquarters from 2008.
Nope. Oh, yeah. Okay,
2000,
sorry.
Excuse me. Was employed.
I was like, oh, it was, yeah.
2014. She was a writing professor, United States Air Force officer, has her master's in humanity from Carolina State University, and is currently a freelance writer for Eat to Perform as well as Paleo Goods. Did I get that right, Lisbeth?
Mostly. Pretty good. I'm going to give you a B+. It's a California State University where I got my master's, and Steve's Paleo Goods is the full name of the company.
Okay, I apologize. Probably won't be the first thing I butcher during the next hour or so.
That's life. That's fun.
I'm telling you, I sat down to read about you, and I started on your website, and it's been all I could do to get off of it. I just started reading your works. I got on and I ordered your CrossFit coloring book, which is the most brilliant thing that I've ever heard, probably. I ordered it for my wife because she takes it from our daughter, takes her coloring books and steals them. And so I thought, gee, she's really going to have nothing to say to me for a while because she'll just be coloring and enjoying life.
Coloring books are fun. You know, as adults, people get this idea like, you know, as adults, they're like, oh, coloring, like, you know, and you think like back to school and trying to stay in the lines and whatever, but coloring books are fun because you can have whiskey with them now, you know, like you couldn't have whiskey in school, that would be messed up, but you can sit down and color barbells and drink whiskey, put some good music on, like life is good.
That is the good life.
Where did the idea for the coloring book come from?
Well, you know, I've been looking in stores for a book that I wanted to color, and so I would buy something that was like arty, but I didn't want to color in owls or, you know, floral patterns or mandalas, all the stuff that, you know, is out there. And so you know, Toni Morrison once said, if you can't find the book that you want to read, you must write it. So I decided I was going to make my own coloring book because I couldn't find one that I wanted to color in that had barbells and uplifting messages and fun. Like, you know, there's a page in the coloring book that has would you rather. So you get to pick, like, you know, would you rather do 200 burpees or eat a pile of your own vomit? That might not be an exact quote, but that's, you know, the gist of it. You know, and so which would you guys do? 200 burpees or eat a pile of your own vomit?
Burpees.
We go with burpees and then probably wind up in a pile of my own vomit.
There you go.
I find the coloring books are rather therapeutic, and it's like anything else. When I intellectualize it and think, do I want to color? Like, I don't want to color. Why would I want to color? And then when I sit down at a table with a marker, I can't leave the table.
Right. Right.
And that's the same for a lot of things in my life. When I try to put myself there intellectually, I don't get the same result as when I step out and actually try to do it.
Oh, exactly. And that's the same step that people have to make to get into the gym to begin with, because they sit there and think that they can think themselves into it. And instead, like I always tell people, just start some motion. You know, like if they're down, they're depressed about something, I'm like, just start some motion. You know, and if you go to the gym and just hang out, and then you're like, well, of course you're going to pick up the barbell. You know, or even if you can't deal with the gym, because a lot of times when people are down, I'm like, just get outside. There's a quote somewhere, it might have been Patricia Vaccioni, who said, when you take your sorrow outside, you change it. And, you know, I think that sometimes you just got to go for a walk or run, take your dog for a hike, and then that will start that motion. And then you will want more motion and more movement. And then eventually, maybe you end up in the gym, because I think the barbell is tremendous therapy that I don't think enough people are using, and I don't think enough women are using. And it's one of the things that I will always be thankful to CrossFit for, is for introducing the barbell to more women. Because I think the guys were kind of a little more tuned in for a long time into the power of the barbell, but for more women to learn that to put something over your head and throw that shit down, and maybe you get to, say some bad words and just be who you feel like you are inside instead of who the world tells you have to be. I think it's so, I don't like the word empowering because I don't like to be given power. I just want to take power. So I just think that it's a great way to tap into your own power.
I bet I wouldn't be the 100th person to tell you today that you're an excellent motivator.
Oh, thank you. Just a little.
Yeah.
You're such a motivator and a leader, and you just carry that about you, and you make it look so natural.
Well, thank you. It's who I am, I guess. And I think all in life we spend so much time trying to think about who we're supposed to be, and then eventually, hopefully, you come to the point where you're like, this is actually who I am, and then a little bit more of it, and a little bit more of it, and you realize the world doesn't explode if you're going to be who you are, and life goes on. We all spend, I think, way too much time thinking about how maybe others will view us, or how the world will view us, or what will happen if we do something. And I think most of the time we just need to go do it and let the world respond.
Amen. It eats me up every day. I'm constantly concerned with that, and it's like they say, I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. And it just creates a real problem. And listening to somebody like you who seems to be so good at tuning that out, it's interesting, and I want to learn about it. To go back to when you were young, where did you grow up, and tell us a little bit about what you were like as a kid and what got you going in the directions that you're going now.
Okay. I grew up in Connecticut, and in a family with, I had 4 older sisters, and they were varying shades of athletic, but my dad was every Saturday, my father golfed. Unless there was snow on the golf course, he was out there. And he taught me how to shoot hoops and signed me up for Little League and all that sort of thing. And so I played sports, basketball and softball mostly, throughout grammar school and high school, and then I went to college at Vassar College, and that was the only period in my life that I wasn't massively physically active, because Vassar was just like, we don't care if you do sports, you're here for your brain. And I look back and I wish I had been more active during that time. But then I got out of Vassar, joined the Air Force as an aircraft maintenance officer, spent the next 6 years traveling around the world, deploying. I was on fighter jets, so the F-15E. It was a wild, fantastic time. And then got out of the Air Force, married a man who was in the Air Force at the time. So we then deployed or got stationed on Okinawa, Japan, the island of Okinawa, Japan, and lived over there for almost 4 years. Moved around the States, lived Virginia, Edwards Air Force Base out in the middle of the Mojave Desert in California, and ended up back in Connecticut and in my hometown after my then husband retired from the Air Force. And then that's where I started to teach writing, and I was a personal trainer, and I then opened about the 250th CrossFit affiliate. After 3 times deciding I wasn't going to do it. So if I had pulled the trigger right away, I would have been probably the 75th. But I just kept saying, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then one day I just thought, I'm going to fill this application out. And I turned to my husband at the time and I said, I just have this feeling that if I do this, our lives are going to change. And I did it. And, life started to change. I started in my garage, training a bunch of women. Then we got I had to get a place because my lawyer was like, the town is going to figure out that you're running a business in your garage and you got to move because they're about to knock on your door. So I got a place, and then we got a bigger place. And 6 months later, I'd met Greg Glassman one time, and 6 months later, the phone rang. I was watching gymnastics on TV in my house, and the phone rang. I didn't even look at caller ID, and this voice said, "Hi, it's Greg Glassman." And I said, "Yeah, okay, sure," thinking I was being pranked by somebody. And he was like, no, really, it's Greg Glassman. And he proceeded to tell me that he thought I ran a super affiliate, that he loved my blog, and that he wanted me to work for him. And so I said, okay. It was like maybe a 5-minute call. And then after that, I started writing the affiliate blog for CrossFit. And from there, I just started doing more and more for them. And a few months later, he asked me to run the affiliate program. So I ran that for a couple of years for CrossFit, and then I originated...
When you say ran the affiliate program, what did that entail?
Okay, so the affiliate, at the time, there were about 600 affiliates in the world, and so then it was a matter of setting up the systems and reading essays, deciding who becomes an affiliate and who doesn't. There were, gosh, 3 of us on the affiliate team at the time. And then, trying to look ahead in the midst of massive growth, because we went from 600 affiliates to 2,500 affiliates within the 2 years that I was on the program. And then I brought CrossFit into social media and started the whole program there, Facebook, then we brought us into Twitter, Instagram, and ran that program for 3 years, developed that team, and then returned finally to doing what I'd been originally hired to do, which was write, and returned to writing and editing for CrossFit. And then about 2 years ago now, we parted ways, and I've been on my own since then, and I've written 4 books. I've got a 5th book coming out next month, which is a journal, a workout journal. So that it's a motivational workout journal, and it's got a quote every day from my writing, and some other worksheets to fill in, and it's got the stuff that you want in a workout journal and not all that other crap that you don't want. If you want to look up how much, you want to look up what's this exercise, you want to look up, what's this workout, you can. We all have the internet in our hands pretty much all the time. But this book gives you something to think about for the day, write your stuff down, and then some other things in there that are fun and make you think.
Some of the underlying things that pop in my head when I read your writing are basically wrapped around the idea of just do it. Like take whatever it is that you should be doing or that the universe is telling you to do, and be prepared for it, and step up to the plate and do it. And it sounds like you've been faced with that a number of times, from starting, joining the affiliate, to going to work for CrossFit, to stepping out, leaving CrossFit and going and writing books and becoming a freelance writer. Does that just come easy to you?
No, but I think that I call it joining the circus. Like, you have to have a join the circus mentality. So that means that you just gotta kind of throw it out there, and the world will respond to you. What's that go-to quote about boldness? A genius loves boldness. You have to decide, I'm doing this. For example, one year, 2010, all of a sudden CrossFit asked me if I would move to California, and there was no office for CrossFit in California at the time. There were 2 guys, Rory McKernan and Tony Budding, working in Tony's garage, and they were like, Tony was like, would you move out to California? And so I said, okay. I said, as long as I don't have 2 children. So I was like, as long as I'm not involved in a custody battle, I'll go. And so my ex-husband was like, nope, this is good. This is a great opportunity for you and the kids. Go. And so we basically either sold or gave away almost everything we owned, bought one-way tickets, sold my car, everything, sold my gym, and we headed out. That's a huge leap of faith. But everything works out eventually. I think we spend a lot of time thinking about what would happen if it doesn't work out. And you really can't see the road ahead, so you have to have a good gut instinct, because if you have a bad gut instinct, don't trust your gut instinct. Ask somebody for help and advice. But I think if you're tuned in and you've learned to continually refine that process of tuning into yourself, the same instinct that you can hone to know when to extend, to know a triple extension, to know that your elbows need to be high and back in the snatch, that same instinct that you've honed through practice, you can have that in your life and in your gut, but we try to over-intellectualize things sometimes, and you just got to train, and then go for it.
I like that. You make it sound really easy. You make it sound like one of those people who, if they don't like their environment, they change their environment. They bring good things to them by looking for those things and going to them.
Well, and you have to know, I think, you have to know when to go and when to stop. For example, the other day, I was in the gym and I'm training, and it's just, you're in one of those sessions where things are going okay, but not right exactly, but you're still like, okay, it's going to get better. And I went to do I was warming up to do some deficit deadlifts, and it was only 155 on the bar, and I just had to pull it 5 times, and just it didn't feel right. And I put it down, and I could feel something in my back, and I'm like, that's really weird. And there's part of me that was like, I want to continue, because I'm only a little bit into my workout at this point. And there's part of me that was like, no, you felt this feeling before, and you know it's best to stop. I just took everything off the bar, and I went home. Sure enough, it got a little worse during the day. Then the pain localized, and I knew what I was dealing with, and I knew how to rehab that. And, it wasn't a heavy weight, but just something happened. And I knew enough to go home. 10 years ago, do I know enough to go home? Maybe not. Maybe I just keep going, So I think that you have to figure that out. Like a shirt I'm wearing today, it says keep going on it. Somebody gave it to me. And, you have to know what that means. Keep going doesn't always mean keep going in that workout. Sometimes keep going means you need to stop this workout so you can keep going tomorrow. You need to take care of yourself. And I think that particularly in weightlifting, CrossFit, in sports, we get this idea like, I'm going to make it through no matter what, which is really important. And that's what we have to do a great deal of the time. But sometimes we have to pull that back, because keep going means you got to take care of yourself.
In order to keep going. Yeah, I hear that. Now, your writing, how much of your creativity in your writing do you attribute to your fitness and staying active?
I think it's so critical. I really, growing up, I already saw that you're supposed to be either, you're going to be smart and do these intellectual pursuits, or you're going to, work out, you're going to do sports. It's like in high school when you had jocks and you had nerds, and, maybe you had somebody who was really smart who also played sports, and maybe you had somebody who played sports who was kind of smart, but there were very few, maybe 1 or 2 kids that seemed to breach that gap. And I think we'd all be better if we breached that gap. If we all tried to, those of us in the gym, tried to use our brains a little bit more to explore things, reading and listening to things, which is why I think podcasts are fantastic in video for learning, because you can get things done in a different manner and in a different amount of time than reading. Not everybody wants to sit and read a book. And so I think that we have to kind of merge our worlds. We do best when we don't try to divide these things. I think movement enhances thought, and I think thought enhances movement. And when we put them together, we get the best of both worlds. But we're socialized from early on that you should be this or you should be that. And for example, I can remember being right before I started my CrossFit affiliate, I was talking to my college roommate, and I said, should I be a trainer though? I mean, I'm training people, but should I be a college professor instead? And she said, Liz, be both. It's about time that you tied all parts of your world together. And I was like, oh, it never occurred to me. And so I did. And once I did, life exploded. And it's been a wild ride in the 10 years since. But I think we all do better when we combine movement and thought. I think that we sell either part short, we sell ourselves short.
That's an interesting point. I wouldn't have identified I wouldn't have identified it had you not pointed it out, but you do really seem to carry multiple identities, through your writing and through being a fitness instructor and gym owner and motivator and all of that. And I think that a lot of people sort of, they'll take one and try to mold that, and they're a little bit leery about stepping out and creating another identity when there's all sorts of things to explore, and kind of being a utility player in life is available for you.
Oh, definitely. And I think that I'm fascinated by the concept of second lives. We all think that, well, this is what we have to be or who we have to be. But there's this whole group of people that when they hit their 40s, sometimes it happens early 40s, late 30s for a lot of people, that mid 40s, like that they hit this point where they go, oh, like if I don't do this, I'm not going to have this in my life. And they try, and they just explode then. It's this incredible period of creativity and growth. And I think that's fascinating. And I even think, though, that for some people it happens earlier. I was always interested in looking at who CrossFit affiliate owners were before they decided to open a CrossFit affiliate. The concept that they had been, business people, they had been teachers, they had been, dentists. Some people had been in, the clergy field. Some people had been in other fields that you wouldn't imagine, music students or, theologians, people that just came from all walks of life and decided that they wanted to try something different, no matter what their age. And that to me was kind of what was really fascinating and fun about the early years of CrossFit, because it was this phenomenal influx of different thinkers who were just saying, as early adopters, if you have the concept of early adopters, mid adopters, late adopters, those early adopters are a really fascinating group of people in whatever industry you're in. They say early adopters are 5 to 10% of the population, people who will go and try something without any social approval or feedback. Those people are really interesting because, and I found them interesting in CrossFit because they were willing to say, you know what has come before is bullshit, and we're going to do this, and you're telling us we're not supposed to, but we're going to do it anyhow. And there's a great freedom and energy in that. Now it's a little bit of a different beast. Everything matures and changes. But those early years were wild fun.
I love the way that you put that. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and she is certainly an early adopter. She's one of those that she doesn't bring the world into her decisions. She just is what she is, and when she takes hold of something, she's running with it for her own curiosity's sake and her own benefit. And I try to be like that, and try to be aware of that every day, because I think it's a great quality to have.
Well, you probably have some of it because she has to have seen it, or your wife does, because she has to have seen it modeled somewhere. So that I haven't done a huge amount of research into early adopters, but I know, like, my own mother was an early adopter. So, like, when I was a kid, microwaves were a brand new invention. And we came home one day and there was this box on the counter, and we'd never heard of a microwave. And my mother, we were all like, what's that? And she was like, we can put food in it and heat it up quicker than you could on the stove. We're all like, whoa, what magic is this? We brought all our friends over and showed them. My mother was always trying to buy the latest thing to, show us, and, all that sort of thing. So I think that there's that spirit somewhere that you learn it, whether you learn it from a parent or an aunt or an uncle, but somewhere there's somebody there who's got that adventure. And when you look at, like, life, like, I'm always fascinated by America as a nation of immigrants, because that took big guts to leave your country and go to a new country. Like, my great aunt Nellie came over when she was 12. They pinned a note in English to her dress and put her on the boat. Like, life's got to be hard. She came over from Lithuania. They had a dirt floor in the farmhouse, and they were like, you're going to America, so okay, pin the note. Imagine being 12, and someone pins a note in another language and puts it on your shirt and puts you on a boat. You'd be like, wow. Like, I mean, that's wild, but that's, like, the people coming over through Ellis Island, they were, early adopters. They had no, just a name and somebody to catch you when you landed on the shores. That's wild.
Well, the hard part about being an early adopter is you have to adopt early, and I want to have that story. I want to be that girl who's got the note pinned to me and be able to tell my grandchildren about that. I just don't want to go through the risk and the fear of going through the process. And I have to tell myself every day, in order to be able to tell that story or have that experience, I have to live that story and go through that experience.
Right. Which is sometimes you kind of got to make adjustments in your head all the time. All of us do, to be like, is this worth it? I have a 19-year-old son, and he comes home from college, and we have to have talks about, risk to reward ratio. And I have to orient him to that. I'm like, listen, this is a big risk with a little reward. You have to think in this way, even though you're 19 and you're full of energy. I do need you to consider that sometimes. But it's just, we have to adjust our thoughts for that. So, for example, I was in some kind of seminar last week, and they were talking about data backup and, make sure that you backed up the data on your computer here and there and have a secondary backup and all this stuff. And the presenter said, because if you lost all your data, what would you be? And I said, free. And that was not the answer that anyone in the meeting wanted. But, that's why I was like, I'd be free. But I think it just takes a little reorienting your headspace sometimes, to figure out what you should do.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic answer.
Wilson talked about his daughter. She's 7, and she doesn't, kids don't have those filters that older people have, put on themselves. And how do you go about teaching somebody who's 40 years old and facing like a decision to take a risk and do that, but they're too scared to do it? Like, how do you help someone change that mindset?
I think that it's like with anything, it's small steps and it's foundations, so that it's and often using the analogies from the gym help tremendously, because we can all think back to, okay, now I know how to do a clean and jerk, but I didn't know what a clean and jerk was before. Most people can think that, oh yeah, I didn't grow up knowing what a clean and jerk is. It's kind of like when I see people that are like, well, I know, blah, 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 I've been doing CrossFit for, many years and I know everything. And I'm like, you were born doing CrossFit. Like, we all just learned about it like 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. Nobody grew up, as a baby doing it. Now maybe some kids do. But I think that you just kind of have to, I think the gym and any kind of movement, whether you're a runner, whether you're a weightlifter, a tennis player, there's so many analogies that are available through sports in order to reorient our mindset. And I think that we need to take more advantage of those. I often wonder, like, we learn so many things in the gym and in sports. And if you don't learn them there, you don't learn these concepts of not just teamwork, but resilience, grit, whatever you want to call it, this idea that you have to practice again and again and again and again. If you don't learn it in the gym, I'm not sure where you learn it. Some people will be like, oh, well, I was recently having this conversation and somebody said, oh, well, I learned that in science and I learned that in math. And I'm like, yeah, no, not the same way. You learned it a little bit, but not exactly the same way. And I think that we need to have less turning up of our noses on either side, on the gym or the brainiac side, because there's so many things that cross over. And so you have to, but back to your question, you have to find a way to talk to people that they can understand and to break it down in order so that they can reorient their mindset and see the value in looking from a different viewpoint. When you look at life and whatever jobs that people do, there's great value to be found in being able to take the complex and explain it simply. Because it's easy to take the simple and explain it simply. It's easy to take the complex and explain it in a complex manner. But it's difficult to take the complex and explain it simply. And that's where people make great amounts of money in life, because they have that skill to do that. And I think on a different scale, that's what we do in the gym when we coach. When we train someone, we take something that's complex and break it down bite size so that they can go through them. Okay, here, then here, then here, then here, then wow, now I have a clean and jerk. And there's so many ways to do that now, but it's absolutely fantastic. You know, I look back, and when I started to learn the push jerk and the push press, there weren't a lot of resources. You know, it was 2006. And I stood in my garage because there were no CrossFit affiliates close by. There were maybe 5 at that time, or 4 in the state of Connecticut. And I stood in my garage, and I had a printout of the early CrossFit instructions, and I taught myself how to push press and push jerk right there. Now you can just go on and look things up. There's so many videos. There's so many ways. You can find an instructor here. You can find a trainer. You can find a coach. Whatever. You know, in Santa Cruz alone, there are like 13 CrossFit gyms. So you can go to any of those. You can go to a non-CrossFit gym and learn. So many opportunities now, and just within our own houses even, through the internet, that, you know, so much.
Do you still coach? Do you still instruct?
No, I don't coach anymore. After I sold my affiliate in 2011, I was good with not coaching anymore. I've been asked to. Most times I decline, just because I think that we are now at a level that in coaching that there are greater technical experts than me. You know, when I coached, you had a fantastic time, you learned things that kept you safe, and you left thinking it was the best time ever. Now, did you learn all the technical aspects? Maybe not. And I think that there are now coaches that can add that technical aspect. They can give you the fantastic time, that feeling, that high feeling, that, you know, amazing experience. And they can do it better than I can. And so I decided that was fantastic experience, and it was time for me to put it away and to concentrate on what I can do and what's more in my toolbox, and that was writing and speaking to people. So that's what I moved into.
Wow, there's a lot of humility in saying that. You clearly have a high degree of self-awareness, which is admirable. I didn't get so far into looking at what you do other than writing as far as services and whatnot. Are you a life coach of sorts, a consultant?
Not a life coach, but I'm kind of getting into the mindset coaching field, in that, you know, life coaching, it's an interesting field. And, you know, I just haven't done much exploration in that. But I like this idea of helping people more to orient how they look at things. And I don't necessarily want to be like, oh, well, you need to clean up this part of your life and you need to do this, and then this is the next path. But if I can help them kind of just change the way they think a little bit, to open a window, to allow more insight in, I'd like to do more of that. So I'm exploring that area a little bit more.
I would imagine you're rather good at it. I'm trying to cram my credit card in my computer right now and get it over to you. I could somebody like you on a daily basis. You had written an article about not allowing the gym to give you permission to eat. That rang home to me, because I don't feel like going to the gym, but if I go, then I can go and just blow my nutrition. How did that all come about?
We see it everywhere. You know, why do people? And again, in studies, we see it in articles that come out that people are like, well, people don't lose the weight or get leaner, and you know, they don't get leaner because they go to the gym and they think because they worked out they can eat more. So we see it everywhere. That's a constant, a major factor that's cited for why people fail in their attempts to reduce their body fat. And, you know, so the gym, like, if it's a major failing, but we have yet to kind of internalize that thought. So I was like, don't, you know, I read somewhere and somebody said, don't earn your food in the gym. And I was like, that is it. Like, you know, we think we have this mindset that goes right back to when we're kids. That, you know, oh, you're a good kid, you know, here you get, you know, ice cream. You know, you're a good kid, get this, you know. And this concept of food as a reward is baked into our society. And then as adults, we still have that thought in our heads. And, you know, but at the same time, so then we veer between things. We're like, okay, food is a reward. Or then we're like, no, you know, deprive yourself of food. You're a stronger person if you don't eat all these things. And we kind of go down a different path then. When I see people like, oh, well, I would never eat this or that. I haven't eaten anything but beef and Brussels sprouts for 5 years now. And I'm like, well, good for you. You know, maybe I have no desire to be a nutritional monk. You know, I want to be able to live my life so that I can, you know, feel great, perform well, and still enjoy life. And the 80-20 rule is not a bad way to go through life percentages. And, you know, in my head, that, you know, okay, so 80% of the time I'm eating stuff that's absolutely fantastic. And then maybe I'm having a little ice cream with my kids. You know, I don't want to be terror mom. I don't want to, you know, get to the end of my life one day and be like, wow, you know, I really wish I'd eaten more Brussels sprouts. And, you know, I wish I'd, you know, made sure my kids didn't have any, you know, cookies ever. I'm not into extremes, you know, but I am into performing well, and so I think that food is a critical component in our lives, socially, physically, and we just have to learn how to deal with it better.
You're a great teacher, and I hear it in your words, and I read it in your writing, and the things that you write about, to me, sound very real. They sound like things that you've lived, and you do a good job, in my opinion, of not trying to brand yourself as the end-all, be-all expert in the field, but just kind of this is the way I see it, this is the way I've learned it, and that you've learned it through experience. And I think that the tone in which you write is very welcoming.
Oh, thank you. I try to, because nobody, you know, we all want to learn, but nobody wants to be preached to. You know, like I find that when I'm writing something, if it feels like I read everything aloud when I write it, after I write it, everything to hear the rhythm in my voice, you know, and some pieces have different tones and different voices, and you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, this is the Morgan Freeman voice, or, you know, this is the Jesse Jackson voice, you know, but at the same time, like, nobody wants to be preached to, nobody wants to be told don't do that. But everybody wants to learn and go along for the ride. You know, when I was at Vassar years ago, Jesse Jackson came to speak, and for, you know, wherever he sits in, you know, the political spectrum, whatever, he's a great orator. And he got up there and he was just like, you know, hope is alive. And you were like, whoa, I don't know what else he's saying, but this is fantastic. You know, and he was like, if Jesus was alive today, he wouldn't get into Vassar because his father doesn't make enough money. And you're like, oh my God. But I think that he was able to speak to us in that in a way that we could all relate to. And I think that's where our best messages come through. You know, and I think that we get socialized to think that we have to be an expert and we have to be very serious and, you know, take my words very seriously, and sometimes we just got to be real instead. It's much more fun, you know. Who wants to go to the party and talk to, you know, the school marm in the corner who's going to tell you how bad that drink is in your hand? You know, no, you want to be standing at the bar with the guys who are like, hey, this is fun to suck, but right now we're having a good time.
Yeah, I like those guys.
It's kind of like we used to have, when you go to an event and there's a VIP room, and so we would have at CrossFit, they'd be like, oh, here's your band, the VIP room. And I'm like, why do I want the VIP room? So I can sit around and talk to the same people, okay, they're great, I mean, it's fun. Rich Froning's a nice guy, Annie Thora's daughter is wonderful, but I wanted to be out with everybody else, in the bar, and, over on the dance floor, wherever. I don't want to be behind some red rope. I just don't see the point of that, but I do my time in the red rope area and then go back into the bar with everybody else.
I understand. Once you achieve a level of your success where you have quite a following, you have a lot of readers and subscribers, part of the goodness that comes with that is you're going to have, as I heard it so eloquently put, seagulls, people that fly in, shit on your site, and then fly away. How do you deal with those people and the haters?
It can be a difficult thing. And now I've gotten to the point that they don't really bother me very much, and I don't give them a lot of energy, because if you don't give them any energy, they eventually will just leave. But I have to say that early on, Greg Glassman gave me great advice early on, and it was one of the first times that I really got attacked viciously online, and it was a homophobic attack. And he said, listen, you don't go to that site. He was like, and don't read those words. He's like, because if you go there and you read those words, it will change who you are, and we don't want that to happen. He's like, so don't do it. He's like, and anybody who tells you to go and read that stuff, or who tells you about horrible things that people say about you, anybody who does that, they're not your friend. Even if you think they're your friend, they are not your friend, because friends don't tell you horrible things that people say about you. Friends stick up for you. And that was fabulous advice. And I just, tried most of the time to put the blinders on and to just keep doing what I'm doing. And at the same time, sometimes you got to go and you got to kick ass. I am all peace, love, and happiness, but sometimes if somebody needs it, I'm going to slap them down and keep my boot on their throat. It's just, you can't always be peace, love, and happiness, but you can try to be it most of the time.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear that. I'm not against throat booting, but I'm with you. I would rather be peace and love when I can. It's great to hear that somebody like you does struggle with that, because you appear to be somebody that would just let that bounce off of you naturally, and it's good for somebody like me to know that with enough practice and mindset, you can get over those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, particularly in our online world as it grows bigger and bigger, and there are more and more voices. But I just read something the other day that reminded me again in this sort of realm. They said, when someone is being snotty to you, they're actually, or mean to you, they're actually just, projecting their profound unhappiness. Just absolutely profound unhappiness is coming out on you. And you just have to keep that in mind, that if they were happy people, they wouldn't be saying that. So there's something in them. It's like the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, where he says, never take anything personally, because really it's got nothing to do with you. That's hard to remember in the moment, and you've got to really breathe through it and, handle it. And then this is the other thing about haters, is that there's something to be said for the thought that haters are actually huge fans who don't know how to talk to you. So that they're fighting you, but there's great passion, because if they didn't have passion for what you were saying, they wouldn't even be typing those things. So that there's emotion there that some haters you actually can, by talking to them. If there are people of intelligence, don't bother with the dumb haters. Just let them go. But haters who are smart, sometimes you can actually talk to them and reach a different kind of understanding. It can be difficult. A few are worth it, though.
That's good perception. What do you tell somebody that comes to you and says, I want to start a blog, or I want to start writing, but I'm insecure about it, I'm scared, I don't know where to start, and I'm not sure if it's any good or not?
It's hard, because people say, well, I want to create. Well, then create. That's what I tell them. Then do it. Don't just want to. And if they are writers who say, oh, well, maybe I should quit, then I'm like, quit. Because if you're really a writer, if you're really a musician, if you really have some kind of artistic ability that you're like, I need to express this, then express it. But if you can put it down and walk away for a year or two, then maybe it's not really that important to you. Maybe you don't have that burning desire. That being said, I'm a great encourager of everybody to write and to put things down in whatever form they have to, or to make videos, or whatever way that they want to, stick figure drawings, whatever the way that they want to express themselves and create, do it. Does it mean that everyone is going to get fantastic at it? No. Does it mean everybody's going to make a living doing it? No. It's kind of just like once upon a time there was a writer that I was asked to work with, and I worked with this person and just could not get this person to the level that was desired by the company. And so they tried somebody else to get this person to the level desired and just couldn't. And even though the attitude was, okay, you can train somebody to do this, you can, but some people are just always going to be a recreational athlete, and that's okay. I'm not going to the Olympics. Doesn't mean that I enjoy cleaning and jerking less than I don't know, Matty Rogers, whoever. I mean, I enjoy that as much, but it just doesn't mean that I'm ever going to have that skill level for a variety of reasons. Slow twitch muscle fiber, fast twitch, whatever you want to go through, limb length, whatever. But it doesn't mean that I can't enjoy the heck out of it and have it add meaning to my life. And that's the same way with writing. Even if your clean and jerk absolutely sucks, it's the worst thing ever, but you love it, then who cares? So it's the same thing with writing. You could be the worst writer in the whole world, but if you're getting pleasure out of it and it's adding meaning to your life, then do it. And who cares what anybody else thinks?
What a fantastic attitude and remarkable perspective. I love that. I love that.
I was just kind of curious what your day looks like. Do you have like a morning routine? Do you have a specific time that you sit down and write every day, or what's a day for you look like?
I do have a routine. For years I was a 6 a.m. workout person. I was up at 5:15, having my coffee, going to meet my peeps at the 6 a.m. workout. And then 2 years ago, I just changed that routine, and I realized that I didn't have to be this crazy person in the morning anymore, and that I could get up and read and have breakfast with my kids and ease into my day a little bit different. So every morning when I wake up now, I read about a passage from about 5 to 6 books every morning, and just a little snippet from each, pretty much. It goes in a certain order to get my mindset so that it's like a Marianne Williamson's Year of Miracles. So it's a little paragraph every day about reorienting your mind. And then I go through a couple other books, nonfiction. I'm reading a great book called Top Dog: The Science of Winning and Losing by Poe Bronson right now, that I highly recommend for anybody involved in the sports field, because it's just captivating how he takes the science and talks about motivation, and he talks about what really works and what doesn't in our perceptions and where we've misinterpreted science. So I read something like that, and then the last thing I read is a piece of fiction, because I think that fiction is key for us to read as adults. We have this concept as adults that, oh, well, fiction is, that's just play. But I think that fiction orients our minds in such a way that we can see other people's viewpoints than we can in a movie or in another form. That in fiction you're able to be in that person's head and then be in this person's head, and that helps us in all sorts of fields, including business, because I like to when we would test something in social media or any sort of thing for CrossFit, I would play what I called Stump the Dummy, and I was the dummy, and I would read it as a very smart person, then I would read it as a medium smart person, then I would read it as someone who's not very bright, and judge my reaction and see where those pitfalls were and where I needed to we needed to fill that in, and we needed to address that. So that's what I think fiction is important, because it enables us to practice being in other viewpoints. So in the morning, I read, and then if I got to get my son off to school, I get him off to school, and then that's typically my writing time then. I used to go to coffee shops to write. Recently, I joined a co-working space in Santa Cruz, and so I go there now, and which is basically like a professional coffee shop. So you drink coffee, but you got a bunch of people there who don't, have offices, but they all come in there to work every day. And so it's kind of like having colleagues that you don't have to work with, which is kind of like great because sometimes you don't really want to work with your colleagues. So I go off for the day and do that, and then 3 afternoons a week I meet my training partner, and we do our program together, and for a couple hours in the gym. And then I do businessy things after that. If I'm going to write, writing takes place in the morning. That's when my mind is sharpest. In the afternoon, I can edit. I can do other business things that I need to do in order to, complete my work. But generally, I rarely write after maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's rare.
How much time do you spend reading in the morning?
I try to keep it to around 35 to 40 minutes, but sometimes it's an hour.
If you were banished to an island and only had 2 blogs that you could subscribe to, what would they be?
Ooh, mine.
Both of them yours?
That's a good question. No blog right now is jumping in my mind, but I will say this. If there was one thing, I'm thinking of a podcast that I find so wonderful right now that it fills a need in my life. There's a podcast called On Being that features Krista Tippett, who's this writer who she brings in people from all different walks of life, and she originally started out with like a more of a spirituality base, but it's not like that at all anymore. But she asks the deeper questions of life, and I find her podcast is fantastic for, like, if it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and I'm making dinner, and I can put on her podcast, and at that time of day, like, the world seems to weigh on you a little bit more, and you're like, you got all things in your head of what you got to do, and kid stuff, and bills and whatever else, and there's all this social strife in America right now, and I can put on Krista Tippett's podcast, and she just takes you by talking to these guests, whether it's some 90-year-old monk, or it's the writer Elizabeth Gilbert, or it's the writer Marianne Williamson, or it's somebody else that she has pulled into her orbit, and she asks these bigger questions, and somehow taking that scope out gives some sort of sustenance that makes you think, wow, as messed up as things can seem in the world, that take that long view, and maybe this isn't such a bad time right now. Maybe we are in strife, but it is a cliche, but it is darkest before the dawn. Maybe we're about to emerge into a better understanding of each other. There's a line in the Tao Te Ching that says, if you wish for something to shrink, you must first allow it to expand. And that's the hard part. Maybe we're in a big expansion moment, and then things are going to shrink again. But anyhow, so I find Krista Tippett's podcast, On Being, is just a great reorientation for my head every day. But she's what's in my mind right now.
That's awesome.
On Being. I'll check that out.
Yeah, for sure. Do you listen to any other podcasts?
Sometimes I just recently started listening to Lewis Howes' School of Greatness, and I like his voice. And I tried a whole bunch of podcasts. For a while, I was a fan of the of James Altucher's, and sometimes what's his name? Oh gosh, SPI. I want to say Pat Flynn's podcast. But I've really kind of shrunk them all then down to Krista Tippett. I don't generally listen to a lot of podcasts in the sports fields because most of them don't keep my interest a lot. And I don't have a lot of time to listen to podcasts, so that I can read something much more quickly than I can listen to it. so I can scan things quickly. So I tend to find that if there's information that I want to get, I can just go and find that quicker than I can listening to it.
Good deal. Hey, I want to ask you one more question. I know that you have work to do. Otherwise, I'll keep you talking all day. Vaughn and I talk about finding your bliss quite a bit, and bliss is sort of defined as what you would do if time and money were not an issue. What is your bliss? What would you do?
Oh, I would be sitting, honestly, I'd be sitting in a gym writing in a notebook and with my Mac there, which is pretty much close to what I do now, except I don't write in the gym. But I love to and sit in the back of the gym, hear those clanging weights, and yet be in a creative space. Like, that to me is fantastic. When I built my affiliate and moved it into a new space in 2009, early 2010, our new space had these gorgeous wooden floors, and we didn't know they were going to be these gorgeous wooden floors, because when I rented the space, because we had been in one space and my landlord was like, you got to move out of this space because you're wrecking the building. It was built in 1890 and you're throwing weights around. You got to go into the building across the street, which is a concrete building, and you can throw all the weights around you want, you make all the noise you want. And so we moved into this space, but no business had been in there in 20 years, and the floor just looked like black crap on the floor, and it was just horrible, and I had to really use my vision to see what it could be, because it had 2 walls of windows and in this industrial building. And so I insisted that the owner of the building, that he have the floors done, because I was like, you got to get whatever this is, creosote, off the floors. And so he brought them in to clean the floors, and when we opened the doors to the space, they were these gorgeous old timber floors that you were just like, holy cow, I wish these were in my house. And so it was just this gorgeous space with this natural lighting. It was wonderful. And I created a space up front. There was this glass wall, and we called it, it was an area for members. I didn't want it called the break room, so we called it the club room. And the club room had a high table, and you could sit there and overlook the training floor and work on stuff. And I always thought that would be awesome if people would just like leave their jobs early and just come and do their work while watching what was going on the training floor. And it never kind of worked out that way. I was like the only person that did that, or I'd sit in the gym and, with my computer in the corner and write. And now, when I just recently, like 2 weeks ago, read an article about how gyms now have co-working spaces, and you can do that and have a little meeting or do your work there, I was like, that's what I was thinking about those years ago when I put that in. But that's kind of like my space of bliss. I just like to hear that noise and see that movement at the same time that I can go deep in my head and write something. So I'm close to what I would be doing in my moment of bliss, what I do every day.
I love it. I hear you. I've gone to bed at night telling my wife that I'm having a hard time falling asleep because I'm so excited about waking up tomorrow morning.
Right.
And I feel like I'm as close as I could possibly be to living my life of bliss. Unfortunately, time and money is a factor, so I have to put that into things. But I love to hear somebody that's as positive as you are, and I love your outlook on, where things are with society. And it's not all bad. It's a great time and a great place and a great world to live in. And if you view it as being a shitty place, it most certainly is. And if you view it as being a great place, it's a wonderful life, wonderful world.
Oh, exactly. And we get to wake up every morning and have coffee. Like, I never drank coffee until like 10 years ago. And then I was like, wow, this is coffee? That's the first time I had like bourbon too. I was like, who has been holding on to these things all this time? Amazing. And there are women. What a wonderful world.
Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed meeting you, Elizabeth, and I really appreciate your time and coming on here.
Oh, this has been absolutely a blast. Thanks so much for inviting me. I totally enjoyed it. You guys are fantastic.
Well, you have a great day, okay?
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.